Hey designers, welcome back to my channel Design with Pramod. Let's do designing together. In today's session, let's try to learn what is instance swapping in Figma, and let's try to create that instance swap property into one of the components. All right, and let's get into the tool and let's try to understand what is instance swap property first, and then later we'll try to create that property into one of our component. If you guys can see here, right, we have this is a component called launch button, and we have some of the components here called launch 1 2 3 4 5. All right, and let's imagine that I'm working on one of the project and I want to replace this icon, launch type of icon, with some other icon. And let's say we want to change this with this icon, right? So what I'll do, I'll click on this button component here, and if I go to this design section, right, you will see that this component is already having one instance here that is like instance. All right, and from there only, if I click on this one, whatever components we have here, right, these are different types of icons we have, and all these icons we can see here, right? And from there only I can swap this component. All right, and let's say for now we'll swap this icon with this launch type. You will see that magic, right? So that actually swapped with this icon right now. I'll click on this launch button again, and I'll go to this right side section here, and I'll try to swap with different icon again. And this is like a magic, right? I can change any type of icon here from my design system library, and let's say someone is owning that library, and if that guy is making the changes on that library, the changes will be reflected on this instance. And this is one of the instance what we have here, and this is how that instance swapping is working, guys. And let's try to understand how we'll create that instance swap property into our one of the component. Let's try to delete these whatever components we have here, and let's try to recreate that. Let me delete that again, and if you guys can see here, right, from here that component has gone, and let's try to remove that, and that is gone. And let's try to create that again, and by clicking on T from my keyboard, I'll enable my text tool, and that is my launch button text. All right, and by clicking on Shift A from my keyboard, I'll be applying auto layout on that launch text. That will be creating me one auto layout enabled property. And on that only, what I'll do, I'll go to this section here. Keep in mind that you will be referring to only instance of the parent component, and these are the parent component what we have here. I imagine these are into different section. Imagine someone has published those component to you, then you have to search going to the asset section, and that is like launch for now. And this is our instance what we are dragging and dropping, and you don't have to drag directly these components here and create that instance swap property, and that will mess up the design. All right, let's go here and try to drag that icon to the right side, because I want to keep that launch icon to the right of this text whatever launch we have here. And let's try to fill this with color, and I would pick some random blue color for now, and that is a launch button. And now let me try to add some padding towards right and left, and that is how the padding is added. Now let's try to round these corners with some pixels, that is like 20 pixels now, and that looks button right. To make that instance swap working, we have to have this launch button as a component. So by clicking on Command Option K, I'll create that as a component. You will see that arrow on the top right, that has actually created one component here. And let's try to rename this to launch button. All right, that is our launch button component here. And let's try to go here, let's try to search that launch button, and we have that launch button here. This is the instance of that parent component launch button here, and we have to check that property whatever we are creating on this one, that should reflect on this one. All right, and we'll click on this one, right? You don't see anything here. So let's go to this parent component again, and let's try to activate that instance swap property. And if you could remind that whatever instance we drag and dropped here, that was the parent component somewhere else into somewhere else's file. All right, so what I'll do, I'll go here and I'll click on this parent component launch button here, and if you go to this section towards right, you will see this little arrow. This is the icon where you will create the instance swap property. All right, and let's click on this one, and you will be popped up with this create property pop-up. Let's rename that to icons. All right, and that is like launch one icon we had there. On that only we'll try to create the instance swap property. All right, and let's go to this create property section, and that will be created successfully here. And if you go to this button here and here, and if you check on the design section, right? This icons instance swap property has come. All right, that means we have successfully created our instance swap property, guys. And what I'll do, if I click on this one again, I'll be seeing so many icons here. All right, and let's try to do one more thing here. Let's try to create some random icon that is like arrow. With the help of pen tool, what I'll be drawing some arrow here. All right, and let's try to have its border thickness to some 2 pixels. All right, and let's try to fill that with some color, and let's keep it as is right now. All right, and let's try to round that towards both sides. Let's try to create that as a component now. All right, command option K, that component will be created. And because if we don't create that component, right, that item will not be listed into our instance swap property. All right, and now we have this as a right arrow. Now we have this as a one more icon here, and let's try to go here and check that icon is coming into our instance swap property or not. And let's go here and check. You see that magic, right? We created that component. Let's say someone is the owner of those icon library, someone is creating that icon there and creating that as component. And if you are making the component and making that as an instance of that one, right, and then if you are enabling the instance swap property on that icon, then whatever someone is creating, right, you can actually update that icon here, and that you can refer here. You can see that, right, that icon is replaced here. And that is the magic, guys, and that is how this Figma is working, and that is how perfect designers will do the designing. All right, I hope you guys learned something great today. If you do hit the like button and share with the learners.